So let's get into entrepreneurship a little bit. We already have, but going into it now to focus on that a little bit. What would you say, out of all the reasons in the world? And I've read your book. You have the 10, all these keys to success, etc. What would you say is the number one reason why people fail? Not necessarily why they make it. The complete opposite.
Right. Lack of brains, lack of effort.
Lack of brains, lack of effort.
Yeah, they don't do the work. They don't learn. When you walk in the room, when you start a business and you start to talk about somebody, you're never in a vacuum with no competition. Unless you're just extremely lucky. And if there's going to be competition, that means somebody else knows your business as well as you do when you get started. And if you walk into a competitive environment and they still know more about the business than you do and more about your customers, you're going to lose. But most people don't consider that. They don't do the work. They don't learn more about their industry. They don't know even about their business. And so you've got to put in the effort to know more about your industry than anybody else. And that's the brains part, and that's the effort part as well. Because look, if you're competing with me, you better know what you're doing. Otherwise, I'm going to kick your ass, and you're not going to outwork me. And so, the combination is usually what kills businesses early on more than anything.
Do you think so? Now, there's a part that people say, Mark made it because Mark is a special guy and he became an entrepreneur. This guy made it. All these guys made it because they have this special gene or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a proven formula that if a brand rookie guy, he's got a lot of ambition, he's got a lot of desire, but not a lot of knowledge and how to. Do you think if he follows a formula, he's guaranteed to make it as an entrepreneur?
No.
Okay, so you don't believe there's a guarantee to make it?
No, because who knows who you're going to be competing with. So if you put two people both following the same formula, both in the same industry, right, which one wins? Maybe they both can win and both be successful, but so I don't think there's a default template for success, but I think there's things that you can do to put yourself in the best position to succeed. So I talk about stuff in the book. I talk about the one thing in business you can control is effort. Mm-hmm. Going out there and sales, curing all. So I think and I agree with your point that there are things that if you do them, you put yourself in the best position to succeed. But if you just walk into a buzzsaw and somebody else is doing them a little bit better, it happens.
Now, are you saying to compete at your level, there's no way?
Or just any level, right? Just any level.
So even if you put a formula for me, I followed it. Will I eventually be able to make $250,000 a year if I follow the plan that you put? I'm not talking about 100 million.
Yeah, but you got to pick where too, right? Right. So I was
industry-wise,
right?
Maybe?
Yeah, I was at a business plan competition, and they were talking about making big money reselling travel plans and making $3 in affiliate commissions, right? It's just not going to happen. You have to be smart. Point. You have to be smart. You can pick the wrong things. And, you're talking, alluding to it earlier about entrepreneurs being born or built, and I think I knew I was wired to be excited about business. How or why, I don't know. But, and there's certain guys that have the genetics to jump out of the gym, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. There's certain guys, that, when they golf, they have the muscle memory and the discipline. Dirk Nowitzki may not be the most talented guy in the NBA, but his discipline and his focus to do what's necessary to be successful, he's willing to do, and combine it with being 7 feet tall and being skilled, it makes him an amazing basketball player. So it's understanding what your skill set is, finding the right place to use those skills, and then going for it. Will that make you $250,000? It depends if you pick the right industry. But whatever industry you pick, if you outwork everybody, if you try to be a little smarter than everybody, if you try to be a better salesperson than everybody, if you try to be better prepared than everybody, you've got your best chance. Because if you don't do it and somebody else does, I have the saying, work like someone's trying to take it all away from you. Mm-hmm. I actually work like someone's spending 24 hours, working 24 hours to take it all away from you. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
When you were younger, was your father into business? Was your mother? Was there an uncle, somebody that did well in business that you admire? Was there somebody you read about that you said, I like Rockefeller, I like Carnegie? Nothing. So it's just purely you that you had business.
Yeah, my dad, I think, my dad did upholstery on cars. My mom did whatever odd jobs. But my dad was always like, if you want something, you have to earn it. And to his credit, he never said, no, you can't do that. So whether it was selling garbage bags, baseball cards, stamps, whatever it was, he never held me back. And so I think that was as important as anything. And, sometimes being young and trying things, you're so naive and you don't know any better. All you do is learn. And if you fail, it doesn't matter. And so whether I was 9, 10, 12, 16, 21, the failures were irrelevant. And, whether you're, 9, 12, 16, 21, 22, 24, I'm sleeping on the couch, I have a car with a hole in the floorboard, You know, I'm living like a bum and like a student. And so what did I have to lose? And so I think that influenced me as much as anything. So it was, you know, my dad was like, go for it. You know, why not? What have you got to lose? You know, you have to sleep on a different couch. So I think that was motivation as much as
So you had the encouragement from
Yeah,
fathers
for sure.
saying, support, go do it.
Yeah, go
so
do it.
So do you think, like, let's just say if we put 10 guys here, you interview them, okay? You could, within a 5-10 minute interview, say, this dude's not going to make it as an entrepreneur. Could you pretty much know that?
You know, I'm not very
has
good
it or
at
doesn't have it?
interviewing. The issue is my interview skills more than,
Really?
yeah, I'm horrible
Isn't
at it.
Shark Tank interviewing though?
Well, yeah, it is, but I get to do due diligence after the fact, right? So I get to
Got
play
it.
my hunches, but I get to
Got it.
check. Yeah, I mean, I can typically tell, right? I can tell, but by their passion, I can tell by their focus, I can tell by their preparation. You know, there's a whole realm of things in any business. Here, you know, here's the business you're in, and here's 1,000 things that influence whether or not you're going to be successful. And really, to me, by through my experience in businesses, I can put myself in his position and say, okay, here are 900 of the 1,000 things he has to be aware of, and then go through and ask. And by how many of those or her issues they've been able to address already, that kind of gives me a sense of how hard they're willing to work. You know, and I can tell by the questions they ask me. So all I have to do is say, okay, what do you want to know? And, you know, when they start saying, what should I do?
They ask you.
Yeah, you know, and that's fine, right? And I want them to ask questions, but, you know, people like to say, you know, the only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask, and that's not right, right? Because the questions you ask tell whoever more about you than anything else you do. Because in particular, it tells me about your preparation. If you ask me questions about just basic things that you should have known and you should have down to a science, that's going to disqualify you almost more than anything.
I've read the CyberDesk you sent out, by the way.
But the questions,
I said, man, I got to get the questions right with this guy.
It's true. Right,
so I read it. I said, okay, I'll take that as a challenge.
And that's what CyberDust, I'll blast out like when I have a thought.
That was great.
Yeah. So
that was phenomenal.
What the questions you ask are critical.
I agree. It's complete opposite on the way you know the traditional way of thinking. Yeah. And I always ask the question. So, Mark, you're now, you know, whatever your net worth is, billions of dollars. You own a sports team. You have businesses. You're on Shark Tank. You're on TV shows. Everybody wants your time. Mm-hmm. How hard is it for you now? This is the thing I think about, because for myself, I run a business. It's harder for me to make friends now and let people in my circle, but I'm not at your level. How is it when a person like you, is it still easy to make friends now?
Yeah,
is
but
it
I'm
more
not out there, you know, at this
or-
point, I'm not out there looking, you know, I don't need any new running buddies. I mean, my high school buddies are still my friends, my college buddies, my rugby buddies. The guys when I first came to Dallas that were my friends then are my friends now. I've got 3 kids, you know, so it's more, you know, my family just takes up so much of my time along with business. So I'm not, you know, and even back in the day when I was single, I was still successful. I could tell the gold diggers from the real friends. I mean, you know, it was pretty easy.
Got it. Did association play a big role with you or not really?
Nah,
Not really for you?
Yeah.
Because you were so determined, it didn't matter. Nobody could influence you, influence other people.
Yeah, I just went and did my thing.
Makes sense. Couple words I'll just put out there. I want to see what you think about it, because I watch you and I watch some of these other guys and I see a sense of paranoia. And I don't know if you read the book, Only the Paranoid Survive. I don't know if
I'm
it's
familiar with
10,
it.
20, great book that was written. Do you think there needs to be a healthy level of paranoia?
Oh, absolutely.
There needs to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I always say, you know, for every one of my businesses, I said, what would I do to kick my own ass? You right? So whatever business you have, there's somebody trying to put you out of business. There's somebody trying to take a bite out of your business. And it's better for you to figure out how they're going to do it rather than they do it. And so, yeah, that's being paranoid. And so you have to be paranoid. You have to anticipate other people's next moves, and you can't ever, you know, downplay the competition. You know, I was telling, I was at a business plan competition this morning at a college, and they were kind of being dismissive of the competition. And so you can't ever do that. You know, they're out there trying to take you down, and they're not just going to sit still. And if you're good, really, really good, you're going to inspire them to work even harder, faster, better. And so you have to be, you know, very self-aware of what you're good at and what other people are good at. And, you know, a healthy dose of paranoia makes a big difference, is very helpful.
So that's interesting you say that. So sometimes, you know, you're being a little bit too paranoid, you know, you're being too concerned about this, too concerned about that. The other question for you would be, Mark, you don't run one company. You run many companies. You're doing deals all the time. And there's this notion that you hear multitasking. right? You can't multitask, you can't do this. So your brain, if I were to take 100%, okay, 10% here, 7% here, 6% here, how do you process all of it here in your mind with the different
That happens
responsibilities
to be something
you have?
I'm really good at, right? You know, I process things very quickly, and that's always been my strength. I can identify what's going on typically faster than anybody, and grind right through it. And plus, you know, I because I force everybody to email or Cyberdust, it's all coming from one flow, right? It's all one funnel. And so I'm not bouncing from meeting to meeting thinking, okay, what did we say in that meeting? We're having to take notes, and then we're having somebody take notes. You know, it's like, it's already in writing, it's in an email, and if it's in Cyberdust, it's like having a face-to-face. And when I see it, I respond to it immediately. Cyberdust forced me to respond to it immediately. And so that allows me to keep things organized and stay on top of things. And, you know, so, you know, anything that's unread, that's my to-do list, and that's how I stay on top of it.
Got it. I've become a fanatic Cyberdust. There's every other hour I'm checking Cyber. When you told me, you know, go check out Cyberdust, and then from there we got everybody on the company. Now everyone out here, the only way you're going to get to see this first, you got to go on Cyberdust. And I'm going to put the link out. We'll do one on mentions to get everybody on there. But I love the product, and we'll get to that because I want to explain how I see Cyberdust, not as a CEO, as a customer, because I want people to see how I see it as a customer. Let's talk about speed. When people ask me and say, hey, you know, how do I get speed going? I want to see your perspective on this because Cyberdust has a tipping point. You know, you got Twitter has a tipping point. Facebook everything is about the tipping point. In your mind, how does one entrepreneur increase the speed in areas that they can increase? There's certain things you can't control.
Speed in what way?
Speed of growing your business.
All right.
So how fast can I grow it?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. You've got to know your own skill set, right? And you've got to know how that fits within your company's life cycle. You know, some companies are slow grind, and you just have to understand that. And you've just got to bide your time until it starts to click, and then grow with it quickly. You know, if you're trying to release a product that needs to be ubiquitous, you've got to go as fast as you can, and then, you know,
release a product, like a launch.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of people who will say, you know, perfection is the enemy of profitability, right? And that doesn't mean you have to wait till it's a perfect product. You know, Cyberdust is a perfect example. We still haven't, it's been almost 2 years, we still haven't advertised it yet because we know it's not ready yet. You know, and so it's been a slow growth grind because we want feedback. You know, we want to keep on learning. We're evolving. But it really just depends on what the product is. It, you know, a barbershop, right? Is it an app? Is it a service? Is it a product? But, you know, the key is looking for the low-hanging fruit. What customers are willing to write you a check or commit to it, you know, so that they're willing to integrate it into their daily lives or integrate it into their daily business. And so getting a commitment either through time or revenue is typically what I look for. And so if I can get a commitment, then I'm going to be able to learn. I'm going to see how they use it. Do they sustain usage? And then once I get the next one, you know, hopefully it came a little bit faster than the first one. Then I can ask for referrals, and then the next one, then the next one, and I just try to ramp it up. You know, when I bought the Mavs, we had no season ticket holder base. And so literally it was a matter of just putting a list of former season ticket holders in a white pages back then, you know, on my desk next to my phone and making phone calls.
You?
Yeah, me. Yeah, because if I'm not going to do it, how can I expect someone else to do it, right? So just get on the phone. Hey, this is Mark Cuban. I'm the new owner of the Dallas Mavericks. You know, I'd like to invite you back for again. It's not, though. This is my business.
But you can't get regular sales guys or something to make those calls once they get to a quarter. You're a guy that's a billionaire. You're making those calls.
But that's all, you know, and that's fine and good, right? Because everybody's got their own goals, right? But still, I don't want anybody at the Mavs to be able to say, well, he's not willing to do the work, right? There's, you know, if I walk around, I'm picking up all the papers. I'm not saying go get that picked up. I'm like, okay, that's trash. I'm picking it up. But in terms of speed of growth, it's really, you got to get that first customer first. And then when you get that first, what did you learn? Reiterate, get that next customer. And then hopefully as you learn more and more through the process, then the next one comes by even faster.
You know, it's interesting when we walked in here, and I appreciate that on the speed side. When we walked in here, typically when I want to know how it is to work for somebody, you got to ask people around them. Right? You can't ask the person, how's it to work for you? You can't ever get the right answer. So I asked the security guy, this guy said, oh, you know, Mark comes, he's going to say hi to everybody. He's going to do this, he's going to do that. And they were all like Fans, they love working.
That's because we have cameras and microphones. No, I'm just
That's so they see all their work on what they're doing. That's classic. That's classic. Okay, let's transition to a different subject. Let me see the time. Okay, let's transition to a different subject with college. You went to IU,
Yep.
right? Now, you got a lot of people that say, forget about school. You know,
They're
drop out of
idiots.
school.
They're idiots.
So you think they're idiots.
idiots.
Tell me why.
if you're going to have and run a business, if you don't understand accounting, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Can't you hire a guy that knows how to
But
run
then
accounting?
they still have to communicate to you, right? I mean, there's people that don't understand the concept of, the difference between profits and cash. Your accountant might tell you you're profitable, but your cash is going down. Not understanding a breakdown. And when you don't,
You think you need college to learn that?
yeah, I think you do, right? Because it may not, for some people, look, if you're so self-motivated that you can take an online course in accounting and teach yourself everything, you're way ahead of the game anyways. But most people aren't. And I'm not saying you have to go to Indiana. I'm not saying go to an expensive school. I don't care if you go to a community college and take accounting and spend $99 for the class. Just, spending the money forces you to be more obligated to do it. But accounting, finance, lesser extent marketing, sales if the school offers that. These are that's the language of business. And so while it's possible to teach yourself these things and while it's possible to hire them, when you're starting your own company, you don't want to have to spend money hiring an accountant, right? You're already probably going to have to hire a lawyer to set up well, let me tell you that. If you've gone through all these classes, you probably don't have to hire a lawyer to incorporate, right? You can probably figure it out yourself. And so your cost of opening up a business drops. But even more important than all that, that's the blocking and tackling. That's the language of business. The thing I learned at Indiana that was more important than anything else, I learned how to learn. And learning became far more important to me because the one certainty in business is that it's always going to be changing. If you're not always learning, to this minute, if I'm not continuously learning, if I'm not just absorbing as much as I can absorb, someone else is going to kick my ass, right? So you talk about paranoia. The greatest source of your paranoia should be knowledge. If someone else knows more than you do, and if you're not learning, if you don't know how to learn, if you don't have a thirst for learning and acquiring information, you're SOL.
I mean, my dad busted his ass. I mean, he worked six days a week, left at 7:30 in the morning, got back at 6 or 7 o'clock, lost his eye in an accident doing upholstery. He had a staple break when he was putting some covering on a car seat. It was a middle class upbringing. My mom did odd jobs. They just wanted something better. I mean, my grandparents came over from Russia, and my dad was the first generation. My uncles were the first generation Americans, like my mom too. And like every child of immigrants, they wanted better for their kids.
It's funny. I mean, a lot of people grow up that way, right? But not many people end up like you. So, what do you think that's the result of?
I think, everybody's got something that they're good at, and the hard part is just finding it. And I found out early that I was a good salesperson, that I really liked business. Like I like sports. I mean, I read everything I possibly could, played sports as much as I could, just wasn't as good as I wanted to be. And business was the same way. I mean, as long as I could remember, I was buying and selling baseball cards, garbage bags, whatever I could find, stamps to collectors. But I was also reading everything I possibly could about business. And, I was that unusual kid that I'd rather read about Ted Turner than go to the movies. And so I think that created a foundation. And my parents my dad used to always say, I don't understand what you're doing, but I'm glad you're doing it. And so I had my ups and downs along the way, of course. But I just think that I just put in the time and was fortunate enough to really get excited about business, and that paid off benefits over the long haul.
I mean, you almost have to have that drive. Like, in other words, you can't fake it. You can't pretend that you want to read about Ted Turner and, okay, I'll skip one movie.
Well,
it has to be in your soul.
Yeah, I mean, you can fake it till you make it in a lot of areas,
Yeah.
particularly if you're working for somebody else. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be great at something, you've got to make the effort to be great at something. Whether it's sports, whether it's physics, math, science, business, whatever it may be, it's not just a natural skill. You've got to learn, and particularly if you're in the technology industry, because it changes every day. When I got started in after I was a bartender when I first came to Dallas, got into the PC industry, got fired, started my own company, but I learned early on that there was always something new, and most people didn't put in the time to learn it. It's like now with artificial intelligence. Lots of people talk about artificial intelligence. Lots of people talk about machine learning and neural networks. Not a lot of people are putting in the time to take classes or do the tutorials or to learn how to apply it to business, and that's what it takes. And that's just something I've always enjoyed. So I've been fortunate at that.
Now, wait a minute. Are you doing that with AI
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
now? What are you doing?
Oh, I've been on Amazon doing the machine learning tutorials. Right now, I'm going through. I've taken Python online classes.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go in my bathroom, there's a machine learning for dummies book. I just started JavaScript neural networks. There's a little tutorial where they've got most of the library, brain.js and all the libraries. And it's not, if you have a background in programming, it's not hard, but I'm not trying to be great at that, but I want to understand it. So I understand all the, the nuanced elements of it and how it works so that I have an advantage.
But where would that take you? Like with your businesses here or the Mavericks or you don't even
everywhere.
know?
It takes me everywhere, right? I mean, there's nothing that AI won't impact. As big as having been around a while, I saw the impact of PCs, then I saw the impact of local area networks, then I saw the impact of wide area networks, then I saw the impact of the internet, then I saw the impact of mobile, then I saw the impact of wireless. Now I'm seeing the impact of artificial intelligence, and it dwarfs any of those things. And if I don't understand how to apply it to my businesses, I remember selling PCs and software and walking in saying, you don't need to use that pen and paper on a notepad or a ledger pad. Now we're going to give you a spreadsheet, and by the way, here's a spreadsheet that costs $495, and I had to pay to go get trained on how to sell it, which is crazy now when you think about it. But then we said, okay, now you can play what if. Then we said you can connect these PCs. Unless I understood the technology, how was I going to explain it? How was I going to understand it? Unless I understand it now, how am I going to invest in it?
Right.
Then I got to go trust somebody who says, oh yeah, I know AI, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. And it's really easy just to say, you figure it out. That's just not my style.
So you're building a base of knowledge, and then you think that at some point it's going to pay dividends in terms of...
It already has.
Right?
I mean, if you truly believe AI is going to change everything, how are you going to understand what people are doing to change everything unless you at least have a foundational understanding of it? Now, I'm not going to build a 1,000,000-layer neural network and try to change the world. I'm not going to show you, I'm not going to write a research paper and saying, here's why the lottery ticket approach works, and you can build smaller neural networks with less data and be more resource efficient. But I can read that stuff and understand that when somebody says, okay, we're building this project and we need this size data set or this size data set, or we need this amount of resources, I can ask questions and understand the answers.
So you grew up in Pittsburgh, went to the University of Indiana for a while, then you said you came here. How have you adopted this city? Why did this become your home, Dallas?
Well, I mean, when I went to IU, I had a bunch of friends that graduated and came down here, and they're like, you got to get your ass down here. The weather's great, the women are beautiful, the economy's good. I said, wait, back up. And I came down, lived 6 guys in a 3-bedroom apartment until I found my way, and have had a blast and loved it ever since.
So how do you describe yourself, Mark? I mean, I said entrepreneur. Is that how you would describe yourself? What do you do for a living?
I describe myself as a grinder. I just, like we talked about learning, that's a grind, but I love it, and I think I've just learned what I'm good at and learned to focus on those things and try to, utilize those skills to now, not just be an entrepreneur, but probably more often now invest in and help other entrepreneurs.
Okay, so take us through your business interests right now. You have the basketball team, you do stuff for Shark Tank, you have stuff here.
You can go to markcuban.com, I list them all right there.
Right.
And so really, I've got Shark Tank and I've invested in 100+ companies there. We've sold a bunch, so I think I've got 70 that are active now. And it follows the normal distribution. Probably 10 are struggling, 50 are doing great, and 10 are doing incredible.
Right.
But I think now I've really evolved some of my focus to trying to help disadvantaged entrepreneurs, people who have less opportunity. I just invested with a woman, Arlen Hamilton, who we've together created a little $1 million fund where she's going out and finding 10 businesses run by people of color or disadvantaged LGBTQ type communities, and just opening doors, because I think my experience applies to anybody, right? Any entrepreneur, no matter what you're trying to sell. And I also think that it's a great business opportunity simply because the markets that they want to sell to are underserved. There just aren't as many entrepreneurs, so there's more opportunity. And so I think it makes great business sense as well.
But let's go through some of these other things. Starting with Shark Tank. I mean, what's Shark Tank like? Is it really a kick the way it looks like it is?
I mean, it's great. We start shooting here probably in a couple of weeks, June 12th or 13th, I think it is. And the way it works literally is we show up on set in Sony Studios, and I get there about 8:30 and they put on a little bit of makeup. I throw on my suit. Like Kevin, Mr. Wonderful,
Mr.
and
Wonderful.
Lori, they have to get there 2 hours earlier because they need tons of
more
makeup.
work?
They need.
Oh,
Kevin's got a lot more land.
listening to that.
Kevin's got a lot more land mass to cover,
There you go.
and Lori's Lori. But in any event, we start shooting at about 9, and they just bring in deal after deal after deal. We know nothing about them. They'll say, this is, Joe and Sally, and this is the name of their business, and they'll walk in and give our pitch. Now, on television, it might take 10 to 14 minutes. In real life, if it's a stupid deal, it might take 20 minutes and then before we're all out. Right. And then if it's an intense deal, it could go 90 minutes, 2 hours. And then they have to edit it down. But it's our money, it's all real, we know nothing about them. If we decide to do a deal, then we have the opportunity to do due diligence after the fact, because sometimes they'll embellish, it's a polite way to put it. Yeah. My widget cost $1 to make and we sold 1 million of them, when in reality, their widget cost $10 and they've sold 6.
That happens sometimes?
Yeah, it does happen more often than you'd think. The producers are supposed to ferret that stuff out, but not a lot, doesn't happen as much as we'd like. So yeah, we'll do due diligence, and about 60% of my deals close. Right. The other little thing is, of the deals that present to us, and we'll see in any given season 250 to 300 that are presented, probably 25% of people who pitch us, that come in, are taped and pitch to us, don't even make it on air for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. What do all these businesses tell you about the economy right now? What do you think the outlook is?
Well, that's a good question. So some of my smaller Shark Tank companies that resell products are getting crushed by the tariffs. I mean, I've got one that may go out of business simply because tariffs at 10% were one thing, tariffs at 25%, they just can't compete. There's other companies that have bigger and better supply chains where they were more creative and were within 5% of their prices, but now with the tariffs, it's almost impossible, and the uncertainty, it's made it very, very difficult. But beyond that, I mean, business is going well in urban markets, and it's a little bit tougher in smaller markets. So, I mean, it pretty much mirrors what you see in the general economy.
Right.
The type of person you are, kind of points to the things you're good at. Are you 12? You're not going to know. Are you 16? You're not going to know. If you're 18, maybe if you have a special talent, right? You can throw a baseball 100 miles an hour. You can sing, and your voice is incredible. You're a concert pianist. You're a chess grandmaster. If you have a specific skill set or talent that just immediately propels you to the top, you want to follow that. Yeah. But I remember having a list. I still have it. When I graduated from college, I was getting ready to graduate, and all the different industries that I thought I might want to partake in. When you find something you're good at, go for it. I was never really into technology when I was a kid, but then as I got a job that used it, I found out I was good at it. And once I found out I was good at it, then it became a lot more fun. Yeah. When you're good at something, it's almost always fun. Right? And once it was fun, and I combined that with my business skills, then I saw, okay, I know how to make money at this stuff.
You just have to try different things, and even if 99% of them fail, you only have to be right one time. You don't have to figure it all out in advance. You can be wrong, you could pick the wrong career, you can pick the wrong job, you can pick the wrong spouse, you can pick the wrong whatever. But you get it right one time, you're set. But if you don't try, and if you don't go out there and try all those different things, you'll never get that one time. And so it's not a question of, okay, how much different stuff do I do, or how many different things should you try? Try them all. Try them all until you find the one you like. And then it's like, it gets really easy, because even when shit fucks up, you're on a mission. You're loving what you do, and then it gets easy. And so that's just the approach I've always tried to instill in people who work for me and myself.
I remember asking my dad I wanted new basketball shoes because I was a basketball junkie back then. He's like, well, your shoes work. If you want a new pair of tennis shoes, you have to go out there and get a job. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 12 years old, and it just so happens he was playing poker with his buddies, and one of his buddies was like, well, I got a job for you. I've got these garbage bags that we distribute. You can sell them door to door. I'm like, okay. And it was when I was selling them and realizing that I liked to sell and that I could sell, and that I recognized that selling was about providing a service and creating value for people, that I knew that I would literally back then, I knew that I could always succeed. I remember I was 16, I think, when I started a stamp company and started going to stamp shows and trade shows and just working a little bit harder than other people and trading up from one stamp to the next. I remember one time I started with a quarter and bought a stamp and left with $50, thinking, hey, if I could do this, I could do anything. And it's not that everything worked. I failed a lot, but I never ever felt like I wouldn't be able to work hard enough to succeed.
I always say it's not about passion. Everybody's got passion for something, right? Don't follow your passions, follow your efforts. Because people say, I was passionate to play baseball. I was passionate to play basketball.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean all of a sudden I was going to be good enough.
Yeah.
But I found myself being really curious about business, being really curious about technology. And that curiosity is really what drove me. And I think, particularly if you're young today, curiosity is great. Always learning and trying to find new things and being curious about new things, because that's what leads you to that path. Trying to figure out in advance, that's hard because you don't know what you don't know.
Be prepared. Understand, put yourselves in the shoes of the people or the businesses that you're working with. The message that I just got on CyberDust is a perfect example. If he would have put himself in my shoes, it would be obvious that CyberDust is important to me. I'm trying to push everybody to message using it. I volunteered, and Dave mentioned that, hey, I'm going to be answering questions long after this is over from you people, from everybody sending me messages. So CyberDust is obviously important to me. And so if you're able to do something that reflects something that's important to me, or whoever it is that you're working or trying to get a job with, or trying to get an internship with, or trying to get an investment from, if you can put yourself in their shoes and put yourself in context of what's important to them, your chances of being successful increase 99%, 1,000-fold, right? And one other point I'll leave with you, right? If you're working for somebody, the best way to be successful is by reducing the stress of those around you. It's not about you. I mean, it's always about me, but that's a different point. But it's not about you. It's about the people around you. If you're reducing the stress of the people around you, those people start to gravitate towards you. They want to work with you because you make going to work easier, more pleasant. You help them accomplish their goals. You help put them in a position to succeed by reducing their stress.
I do the show not because they're great investments, but I do the show because it sends the message to kids 8 to 80 that the American dream is alive and well. You can watch the show and come to realize that somebody out of Iowa or the middle of nowhere in Texas can start a company and turn it into something special. And I think, so many families watch the show together that it's just, particularly in this day and age when so many people are saying what's wrong with this and what's wrong with that and what's wrong with America, it just really reinforces that, somebody with an idea who's willing to go beyond just an idea to a company phase and really work, something special can happen. And just reinforcing that is really important.
Everybody's got ideas, right? And most people just think, oh, it's my idea and I don't have this, right? Mm-hmm. The people that get it done, they don't look at the obstacles, they look at the opportunities. Mm-hmm. Instead of coming up and say, oh, I wish I had a connection, wish I had money, wish I had this. Like this dude with the surfboard, man. He went out and found a used surfboard and he started putting it all together and it was just his time. Yeah. And then he took it, built one, figured it out, built another one. And then it's the same thing with some of the other, pretty much all the other companies where, rather than finding the excuses why they can't do it, they find the reasons to make it work. And then they just bust their ass and good things happen. I didn't have as many personal relationships as I probably would have liked. I put personal relationships aside. I had girlfriends where it was like me or your business. And I was like, what was your name again? You know? You think I'm kidding? So I probably took things to an extreme. But yeah, I gave up on personal relationships in a big respect because I really was on a mission. And once I realized I was going, so when I sold my first company, I bought a lifetime pass on American Airlines, and my goal was just to party with like a rock star in as many countries with as many people as I possibly could. Then I went back and got involved in the streaming business, and I remember sitting there and telling, we had probably 10 employees, and look, this streaming thing I think is going to be really big, and so we really have to focus, and there's going to be some sacrifices. And if you're willing to make those sacrifices, let's go. And if you're not, I understand, you make your own decisions. And I was willing to make those sacrifices. And, it all turned out great in the long run, but during that time, it wasn't always easy, and wasn't always, it was tough sometimes.
I always did everything back-ass half-words. I like to challenge myself, and I went to Mount Lebanon High School in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to take business classes my junior year. Only they didn't offer any business classes, and so I decided I'd take some college business classes. But University of Pittsburgh didn't offer any real business classes either. So I said, I'm going to challenge myself, and so I took a couple night classes at the University of Pittsburgh my junior year in high school. Did well in them, and wasn't really challenged all that much at all. And so I just dropped out of high school, and instead of going back for my senior year, I went to the University of Pittsburgh and started taking classes there. And my buddies were like, "Where'd you go?" And it was just, I've always tried to challenge myself. I don't know. I just never gave a I mean, yeah, it's just, once you get success in something, even when look, I failed many times, and you learn from those failures that it doesn't hurt as bad as you thought. Yeah. That you can bounce back, and then once you taste some success, you realize it doesn't matter how many times you failed. Yeah. Right? You only have to be right one time, then it's always an overnight success, or this came easy to them. You just got to keep on grinding and keep on trying new things. And once you start feeling the success, you realize, look, it doesn't matter what the other people think, other than my customers, other than my, my partners, other than my employees. I care what they think, but from the outside looking in, I was always just so focused that I just never, I got distracted from time. I don't want to say never distracted, but I just didn't want anybody, I didn't want to think that how people saw me was a reflection of the job I was doing. If my customers were happy, if my stakeholders were happy, I was happy.